Hello everyone, welcome to another deck profile with me, Joker Billy. This week I am going to be looking at a weird deck called Dutty Ice. Don't ask about the name. So the idea behind it is that it's really slow. But that is the nature of activated abilities. But this deck has a stupid amount of activated abilities, and they all utilize crystals. Now, there are a lot of cards that could be thrown into this deck as well to better utilize the crystals or use other action abilities, but I wanted to try out some of the newer cards in the set as well, mainly Doga. So I will work my way through the forwards, summons, monsters, and then the backups as well. And there's a lot going on in this deck. So first up, we have Elena FFBE. So yeah, she's got 3 action abilities. Each of them can be utilized differently. Now, it's worth noting that obviously I'm in Ice Earth, lots of activated abilities, going to be using Go-Go, so being able to duplicate the abilities is really good. And that with just one of Elena is actually worth it in my opinion. To be able to attack with Elena, Dull, give her plus 3k with Brave, and then just make your Go-Go become a 10k as well. It's really good, especially on the block as well. But drawing 2 cards for 1 and a Doll of Elena, that's really good. Or paying 3 and Doll to take 2 cards from your opponent's hand. That is really, really powerful. So yeah, there's loads of good ways, loads of good things that you can do with Elena. Obviously, she's very fragile. Chances are she's going to die pretty much the instant she comes in. But still, I think she's worth having in the deck. And yeah, she's not hard to play. She's 1 CP. Your opponent's probably paying more to kill her than you pay to play her onto the field. Wall Trill. So at the end of each of your turns, gain a crystal. A really reliable way to be able to gain crystals. Can be played back onto the field with Norse as well. So yeah, it's kind of like a weird little Viking engine. So much you play one to play the other back onto the field. And hopefully keep on getting those crystals. And crystals are fairly important in this deck, and Wall Trills are much more reliable means other than the likes of Aggress that we had in Opus 17, I think it was, where you'd have to attack with her to be able to gain a crystal. This, just as long as it stays on the field, you get your crystal. Sarah Mobius, so again, only a one-of, and her abilities aren't nearly as meaningful as those of, say, Elena, but they are still pretty decent in my opinion. So choose 1 forward against plus 2000 power to end the turn. Nothing to write home about. But Dull, choose 2 forwards, dull them. That's really good, because that is a very much push for game sort of ability, especially if you have Go-Go on the field. And then Dull, choose 1 opponent's auto ability. If your opponent doesn't pay 2, cancel its effect. Now that, again, with Go-Go is actually quite funny. But still, having that ability there to be able to just actually, hopefully cancel that effect is really, really useful. Now, again, Sarah Mobius, she can't attack or block, so she is more of a monster in this case, but your opponent will be paying a decent amount to be able to kill her. Now, well, I say a decent amount, it depends what element they're in. If they're in lightning, then Sarah Mobius will die very quickly, because there's a lot of 3 CP or less breaking in lightning. But her power being 8k is low, so it means that she does avoid some of the cheaper kills in fire, like Brynhilde. But then you've got a lot of summons now, which can be free cast, and they will just kill something like Sarah Mobius fairly quickly. So, still a card from your opponent's hand and a card from yours, but still, if she does stick around, she does become a problem pretty quickly. Norse. So she can either play, when you play her onto the field, she can either play Wall Trill back onto the field, or choose one category FFC forward other than card name Norse in Break Zone, add it to your hand. And there are a fair few in the deck. Well, I say a few, there's some in the deck. So there is Larkaikus. So when Larkaikus enters the field, choose 1 monster of 3 or less in Break Zone, play it onto the field. Being able to keep on recurring him to keep on playing monsters onto the field is really, really nice. And then you've also got Talika as well to be able to gain crystals. Talika's not hugely appropriate, but to be able to actually find that thing that you need to get the crystal, now obviously you can use Norse to get your Wall Trill, and Wall Trill will get your crystal, but that's at the end of the turn. If you need the crystal then and there, being able to then get Talika to play Talika to gain the crystal to then do whatever you wanted to do might be worthwhile. But ultimately, most of the time she will go for either Wall Trill or Larkaikus. Doga. So yeah, I wanted to try out a deck where I can try and use both of Doga's effects. So when he enters the field, you may discard 1 summon. When you do so, you gain 2 crystals. 6 summons in a deck, which actually isn't a lot. So being able to gain the crystals through that effect isn't great. But I've got lots of other means of gaining crystals, so hopefully you shouldn't need to rely on that. And then you can pay a fire, a crystal, and Dull. Choose deal 7k to all the forwards opponent controls. That's not bad. Again, with Go-Go, that's 14k to your opponent's board. Or lightning, crystal, Dull. Choose 1 forward, break it. That's still fine as well. Again, your opponent will probably kill him very, very quickly, but unless they're in fire and they've got something like Brynholder to just quickly get a card, then you're probably going to be paying more than you've paid for, or equal amount at least. But that's the problem with a lot of this deck, actually, is the fact that it's an equivalent kill, and again, it suffers really badly against lightning and fire. White Tiger, Lassie, Nimbus. Standard good Earth Ice card that can dull and freeze out stuff, especially on the attack as well. Not much more to say, really, just really good card. Go-Go, so there are a super amount of activated abilities, both for monsters and for the, well, I say monsters, actually, there's only the YKT63, and that is an amazing activated ability, but there's a lot of activated abilities, and just anyone you see in this deck, just assume Go-Go can double it. Terror. Now, this is a fun one. So you can pay a fire until the end of turn. Terror gains plus 2,000 power and haste. Ice, choose one character, freeze it. Water, choose one character, dull it. And then ice, fire, and water, dull terror. Choose one forward, break it. To be honest, that last ability isn't going to get played. Well, unlikely. But being able to just freeze out backups on your opponent's field is really, really powerful, because that will stall your opponent for a turn, hopefully stopping Terra from dying, to then continue the momentum of just getting her to freeze everything out on your opponent's field. Now, we do have Shantoto, Tyro, and Katshi. I don't think there's any other multi-element, no. So you've got a fair few ways of being able to generate either the water or the fire for the other abilities for Terra as well. But yeah, just being able to freeze characters is great. What I really like is that you can pay a water, dull a character. So you can dull out a monster before it comes forward, or dull out a backup with a really irritating ability. Talika gains crystal upon entry, and then you pay an earth and dull to also gain another crystal. That's pretty much it, just more crystals. Preesh. So you could probably have a couple of this Preesh in the deck, actually. But can't speak. You can warp her to then deal 8k to something, and then when she enters, she will dull and freeze a backup and a forward. Now, I actually found myself playing Preesh onto the field, or hardcasting her rather than warping her, more often than not, because I just needed to get that backup locked down. Now, if there were more Preesh in the deck, you'd have more chance of being able to warp her fairly early, which is really nice, because let's say, you know, your turn 3 or 4, your opponent's got a couple of backups and a forward as well. You warp Preesh, you kill their only forward, and in a couple of turns, it will also lock down some of their backups and any other forwards they play in that turn as well, which they can see that coming as well. It might mean that they may not play any more forwards in that turn, allowing you to hopefully ramp up a bit and play something like Doga or Terra. Larkaikus. So Larkaikus can get and play in YKT63. So if opponent has one card less in the hand, they get to break a forward. If not, just dull and freeze a forward. That's perfectly fine. It's also got the ability to look at the top 2 cards and shuffle them around as well. Asta Proto-Florian. Oh, yeah, I said it. When it enters, you can pay 2 earth, choose a forward, break it. Similarly for a backup as well. So yeah, just being able to Larkaikus to bring an Asta to then potentially pay an additional 4 to break a forward and a backup, really nice. That combined with being able to freeze out your opponent's backups as well is just great, and I really like this monster. To be honest, anything that allows you to break your opponent's backups, which I realize is a little toxic, but I really, really like it. And then Sanctuary Keeper. So the idea is, obviously, all these cards have activated abilities. Use Sanctuary Keeper to be able to reactivate them to reuse their abilities as well. So something like Doga. So you don't have to have Go-Go on the field, but yeah, having Sanctuary Keeper on the field, use Doga, deal 7k to opponent's field, reactivate Doga, do it again. And then go back to the forward, sorry. Robot Akbel, again, generic ice, generic earth crystal spender that can break stuff and also get lots of backups back to hand. And there's 17 backups, so there should be plenty in the break zone for you to get. You've also got, actually, the Numu as well, because it's got its own break ability, which means that it can dull and freeze something out, and then you keep on getting it back to hand. When you play it onto the field at damage 3, your opponent discards a card. So being able to do that repeatedly with Robot Akbel on the field and keep on getting it back is horrible for your opponent. I can't remember if there's the Earth one. No, there isn't. DG Sniper. So, enters the field, you get to dull and freeze something immediately. That's not too bad. Pay a crystal, dull, choose one forward, break it. Again, that's not too bad. That with Sanctuary Keeper is not bad, because you can either use the ability twice to break 2 dull forwards, or break a dull forward, then attack with him. Finally, Curie with Zet. Yay! So, yeah, I mean, I've actually used his ability a couple of times to be able to freeze out all, or dull and freeze all the characters opponent controls, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. But again, very slow. Really, you need some sort of means of being able to give a lot of these forwards haste and Not being able to do so means that it kind of suffers. But, you know, you could do a different breed of this deck where you remove either element and put it with fire or lightning. Lightning might not be a bad shout because you've got a couple of ways of generating crystals through Lady Lilith. Is it Lady Lilith? Yeah, I'm getting mixed up between Lady Lilith and Lilithset. Lady Lilith to be able to remove your own forwards and gain crystals that way. And in fire, you've got not a huge amount of great ways of generating crystals, but still they are there. But it's a more reliable way of giving haste to any forward, so using things like goblins as well. And yeah, being able to get Curio Rosette onto the field, immediately dull out all of your opponents, or dull and freeze out all of your opponent's board. That's pretty significant. And actually, that in a haste-focused deck might not be the worst. Be able to lock down their efficiency, lock down their forwards, and then you start swinging through. I mean, they lose their ability to potentially cast summons as well if you get rid of all their backups. So yeah, Curio Rosette, not the best forward, but if you do get his ability off, it just completely swings the game in your favour. Alright, moving on to the summons. So a couple of Kusith, because it's Kusith. There aren't any S abilities in this deck, but just being able to get to those problematic forwards and replay them is really nice. So being able to replay Lycaicus, replay Preach, replay Robot Akbel, hopefully replay Doga and get to use his effect. It's also finding the means of doing stuff that you want to do. So it might be a case that you need the crystals. Maybe you've got Kurios out on the field. He's actually stayed on the field for a while because you only have that one crystal. Maybe you Kusith to then get back the Doga. You play Doga, then discard a summon to get those 2 additional crystals to then use Curio Rosette. It's a roundabout way of doing it, but sometimes you have to do these things. Next up, Mist Dragon. Again, standard Earth summon, be able to cancel summons, remove your opponent's break zone, whatever. Zalera. It's like Ice's only board wipe, and to be honest, there are a lot of decks that run a lot of 2 costs and 3 costs, and yeah, it's just really, really good, especially if you come up against something like, oh, I don't know, the new Lightning Starter deck. So many 2 costs. Zalera, kill them all. Fenrir. So, yeah, I mean, this is me just really wanting to play Doga, to be honest. Fenrir can obviously choose a light or dark forward, break it, choose a backup of 4 more, break it, choose a monster, break it, and choose 1 Earth forward, of course 2 less in your break zone, play it onto the field. So if you've already got Doga on the field, kind of crap. But being able to break a monster, potentially quite nice. You know, you could potentially break a backup and a monster at the same time, which, you know, in Wind is fairly likely because you'll be breaking Norsh Talon and Atomos. If you're in, I don't know, against Fire, they probably have, I can't remember her name now, but the Agito Searcher backup, and then, I don't know, Jin. So again, breaking 2 there as well. So it's not the case that you don't have the thing to play onto the field means it's a bad summon. It just, yeah, you could probably throw a few different summons in here, or 3 different forwards, to be able to make this summon a bit more relevant. I've already gone over the monsters already, but yeah, YKT to be able to hopefully break something. Now, there isn't a huge amount of discard in the deck, which, you know, really would utilise this card a bit better, but still being able to play it onto the field through Lycaicus is really, really nice, and just done freezing something, I'm fine with that. Asta, Ploto, Florian, already gone over that. Breaking backups is fantastic, especially alongside freezing. Sanctuary Keeper, reactivate so many of these effects and get to do them twice. Again, Elena, you know, if you've got Gogo on the field and Elena and you do the, you know, look at their hand, discard a card, you get that with Gogo, you do it twice, and then Sanctuary Keeper, reactivate Elena, do it a 3rd time? That's nasty. Now, you have paid a total of 6 CP to be able to do that, but if you're removing most of their hand, I don't have a problem with that. Right, backups, Catshi, I mean, what is there to say? It's catchy. Knight, a crystal gainer, obviously you need it, but also be able to doll something out of the way to start that final push. It's great. Geomonster, more crystal generators. Edward, choose a card in your opponent's break zone, remove from the game. Very important card because so many cards like to res things. So yeah, just get rid of it. Getting rid of summons, getting rid of just so much stuff. If your opponent plays Arciela, they want to remove a summon from their break zone because you don't have many in the deck. Edward to make sure it's removed so they don't gain the crystal. New Moo, already gone over this. Really, I actually really like this card. Being able to dull and freeze something, choose a character, dull and freeze it, so it can be backups as well, or monsters. And yeah, if you manage to get it back through the likes of Robot Akbel, then replay it at damage 3 to make your opponent discard a card. It's just a really good card. Vanille, again, really, really useful, removing things from your opponent's break zone. Choose a summon, if your opponent doesn't pay 2, cancels effects. Yeah, just really good, especially against something like Wind as well. You know, Wind likes to run at max efficiency, which means utilizing everything where they can. So that means they will cast Asura with only 1. They then have to discard a card from hand to be able to pay for Vanille's effect, and that can completely screw with everything for them. So yeah, making sure that you can utilize, screwing up someone's efficiency, or if they're trying to cancel one of your summons, using their Misdrag and they have to pay the additional 2. Just so many good ways to be able to utilize Vanille. Catchy, get something back, also becomes multi-element, utilized mostly through something like Terra, also Doga as well. Tyro, because it's Tyro, and Shantoto, because it's Shantoto. So yeah, it's a really, really fun deck to play, but it's very slow. You could definitely throw in something like Kefka. When he enters the field, you gain a crystal, you use 3 crystals to then, separate your opponents forwards to 3 groups. They get to keep one of those groups, and that is an instant ability as well, which means that they have to... if you've got Gogo in the field, you can use it twice, but you can use it immediately as soon as he comes in, provided you have enough crystals upon entry. Don't rely on that one additional crystal from his entry. And if you do have Gogo, it's actually quite funny as well, because if your opponent has, say, 4 forwards, you have to group them into 3, so one of those groups will be of 2, but then, through the Gogo effect, you then group those 2 into 1 as well. So they get to keep one of those, but they get to keep 2 of those from the first grouping, but only 1 of them from the second grouping, so they will be left with only 1 forward. But yeah, there's loads of good crystal utilizers in these 2 elements, and I probably went a bit too hard with this, and maybe not efficient enough. Getting rid of something like Talika, getting rid of stuff like maybe DG Sniper, Curio Rosette, because they aren't the most efficient, and maybe having a few more things in there which are just standard good cards to be able to maximize that efficiency. But still, a lot of fun to use and really fun with Sanctuary Keeper. Just be wary of any realm that are being thrown around, because they can steal your Asta Protoflarian, the YKT, and the Sanctuary Keeper as well. Anyway, yeah, how would you guys change this deck? What would you put in it? Probably make it a bit more efficient, I imagine, a bit faster. Mixing it up with fire and lightning will be quite fun as well, I think. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, be lucky, and I will see you in the next video.